May 4th is Star Wars Day. Ah, how cute. May the 4th be with you. May 8th is the 8th of May. The 8th of May. The loudest day of the year. The 8th of May. May 8th is also No Socks Day. May 8th is World Donkey Day. But the 8th of May sounds sort of like the Ace of Spades. Probably not the way that I'm saying it. So the 8th of May is the loudest day of the year. The day that we honor the loudest band in the world, Motorhead. And I love the band Motorhead. This Cathouse Hollywood podcast is being released on the 8th of May, 2025. And on the 8th of May, 2024, I released a Motorhead Cathouse Hollywood podcast. And I did the same thing in 2023 as well. And some of what you're going to hear in this episode is taken from those earlier episodes, including the Mikkey Dee interview. Mikkey Dee, of course, the drummer of Motorhead. But there's a lot of new stuff in this show. And there's some surprises. There's some stories you've never heard. And check it out. The last night at the Cathouse was October 13th, 1992, and Motorhead played. I actually have audio. I loved Motorhead when I was a young punk rocker. I loved Motorhead when I hosted Headbangers Ball. And Lemmy is the epitome of rock and roll. Lemmy is rock and roll. Lemmy was my friend, and I'm proud to say I have Lemmy stories. 8th of May 2020, I wanted to celebrate Motorhead Day. Leah is not only a famous tattoo artist, but she's my wife. Aha. I will get a Motorhead tattoo, which, by the way, would be the very first band tattoo I've ever received. And the tattoo I chose was the iconic Snaggletooth, Motorhead's mascot, which was designed by Joe Pitano in 1974 for Lemmy while he was in a band called Hawkwind. So that's how I spent the 8th of May, 2020. 365 days later, May 8th, 2021, I can now go get my Motorhead tattoo from Leah. This will be my second band tattoo. And I'm doing something that I would normally never do. You don't get a tattoo that's just like a tattoo that somebody else has. You don't want the same tattoo as another person. But Lemmy is not just another person. And I want a tattoo that was just like Lemmy's. So on my forearm, I got a black spade with the words, "Born to lose, live to win." Think about how cool that is. Born to lose, but live to win. In my driveway, I have a black Cadillac. The license plate frame says "Born to lose." And the license plate on my car reads LIV, number 2, and win, live to win. It's the 8th of May. Will I get my third Motorhead tattoo? Probably, but not today. Instead, I'm going to call Mikkey Dee, the legendary drummer of Motorhead. Yeah, that's how I'm going to celebrate this year's 8th of May, and I'm going to call it the Cathouse Hollywood Podcast. Coming to you from the Cathouse South Studio in Race City, USA, I am Riki Rachtman, and this is the Cathouse Hollywood Podcast, the 8th of May. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Riki Rachtman, and even though I've been working in TV and radio for 3 decades, I'm probably best remembered for a show I hosted on MTV called The Headbangers Ball. I hosted that show from 1990 to 1995. I know that if it wasn't for what I did 4 years before Headbangers Ball, that I would never have landed that gig, and I sure wouldn't be here with you right now. In case you don't know, a brief history. From 1986 to 1992, the Cathouse was at the epicenter of the Hollywood rock scene. Some of the biggest bands in rock and roll would play unannounced shows at the Cathouse. But it wasn't the performances by bands like Guns N' Roses, Motorhead, Alice Cooper, Pearl Jam, Faster Pussycat, Black Crowes, the list goes on. It wasn't those bands that put Cathouse on the map. It was the sleaze, the debauchery, the raunch, and roll. In September 1986, with the help of my then roommate, Tammy Down, from the band Faster Pussycat, we created a meeting place, a happening, if you will, And the reason that we opened it was to get free drinks and meet girls. It's that simple. I enforced a no-camera rule at the Cathouse, so anything could and did happen, and we didn't have phones then, so, you didn't have the possibility of something stupid you did to come back and haunt you. Now, you may have heard of some of the stories of nocturnal reckless abandon that happened at the Cathouse. I mean, it's written about in any book on the 80s and 90s rock scene. Most of the crazy things that happened did happen at the Cathouse. But these stories come from journalists or reporters, and they're getting those stories from somebody else. There are a lot of good books that attempt to chronicle the rock scene of the 80s and 90s, and a lot of shitty ones too. But the Cathouse Hollywood podcast is going to take you back there with the people that were actually there. The feuds, the fights, the struggles, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Today is a Motorhead special. Woo! I don't recall where I first met Lemmy. I actually don't recall a lot of stuff that happened before 1988. I'm just guessing it was at the Cathouse because by the time I started MTV in 1990, I had already known Lemmy quite well. I know there's a lot of people that'll tell you they knew Lemmy well, and that's because he was really personable. He was respectful to women, treated everybody the same. Lemmy saw through the bullshit, and if you were full of it, he told you. But to be honest, I don't remember ever seeing Lemmy tell someone off. Lemmy, like a lot of the big bands of the late 80s, made Cathouse their home. It was their safe place. They could do whatever they wanted, and it wasn't uncommon to see some of those huge bands play on stage. You might find Lemmy at the bar or on stage doing rockabilly covers with the band Jet Boy. The Cathouse had a great run, a historical run. But in 1992, the Cathouse closed. This sucked for me because even though at that time in my career I had been on Headbangers Ball for 2 years, but the Cathouse was really my heart and soul. It simply had to be Motorhead to play the last night at the Cathouse, and it was in all their glory. I remember Lemmy, all he asked for to play that show was a bottle of whiskey and some smokes. And according to Joey Mead, that would take care of the bands before they went on stage, he said all Lemmy wanted was a bottle of Jim Beam, even though I always remember Lemmy drinking Jack. I told Lemmy, play as long or as short as you want, and yeah, it's fine to be really loud, which Motorhead was anyway. But I figured, what's going to happen? The neighbor's going to complain. The Cathouse was going to get closed after that night anyway. Motorhead played 12 songs, some songs that they don't normally play. They opened with I'll Be Your Sister and then went into Traitor. Like I said, I'm going to play I'll Be Your Sister a little bit later on in the show. They did Hellraiser, one of my favorite Motorhead songs, I'm So Bad, Baby, I Don't Care. The final 3 songs, which were the final 3 songs ever performed at the Cathouse, was Cat Scratch Fever by Nugent, and then it ended with Killed by Death and Ace of Spades. I don't really remember a lot about that night, and it's not because I was drunk or drugged out, because I was sober at that time. The Cathouse name, it meant everything to me. It took me literally from the gutter to a much nicer gutter. To this day, the Cathouse brand is so important to me. And on that Tuesday night in 1992, everything was coming to a close. Every Tuesday since September of 1986, I was at the Cathouse. I'm going to suck it up right now and not dwell on Cathouse closing and talk about the real reason you're here, to talk about Motorhead. I think almost everyone likes Motorhead, don't they? Okay, let's break this down. Rock and roll can be complex. It can feature scorching solos and musical transitions and paradiddles and fortissimos and crescendos. By the way, I really don't know what those words mean. But it can also be simple, raw, dirty, and dangerous. It's supposed to be loud. And the really good rock and roll is really loud and usually fast. That's how I like my rock and roll. That is Motorhead. As a teenager growing up in Southern California, I loved my punk rock. I loved the Southern California bands the most. But I loved the English bands too, The Clash, Sex Pistols, Cockney Rejects. And I loved this punk rock album that I first heard around high school. It had classics on it like Vibrator, Keep Us on the Road. in a great punk rock song called Motorhead. I don't care what you say. That song, Motorhead, is punk rock. In the UK, metal fans and punk rockers liked Motorhead, and you never really got that. Here is the first of 3 Motorhead stories I'm going to tell in this episode that you probably never heard. Did you know Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols actually lived with Lemmy before he was Sid Vicious? And Johnny Rotten had already known Lemmy because Johnny Rotten was a big fan of the band Hawkwind, which was Lemmy's old band. We think of Sid Vicious from the Pistols as being this icon, but the truth is, he couldn't play bass worth a shit. He was not a good bass player. When he was living with Lemmy, like I said, he wasn't in the Sex Pistols. And when Sid got the job playing bass with the Pistols, he was so excited that he ran into the flat and told Lemmy, "I'm in the Sex Pistols." And Lemmy thought Sid got a job on the crew. Never imagined he would have been hired as the bass player. Lemmy attempted to teach Sid Vicious the bass, but eventually gave up because Sid was so bad. So yeah, I first got into Motorhead because I thought they were a punk band. As I got older, though, I did start listening to more and more metal. That band Motorhead was still there for me. Lemmy started as a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. He then played in the Rainmakers, the Motown Sect, the Rockin' Vickers, Sam Goppel, and in that band, he was named Ian Willis. I can't really tell you much about that band. He played in a band called the Opal Butterfly and a band called Opal, and then Hawkwind. That was the band that I had mentioned that Johnny Rotten was a fan of, which is kind of weird because it was totally trippy, acid, psychedelic music. And Lemmy was the bass player, but he ended up singing one song called Silver Machine. And that song that Lemmy sang ended up being a big hit for Hawkwind. When this podcast is over, I want you to go find the song Silver Machine from Hawkwind. It's psychedelic, trippy stuff, but the hook, it's so contagious. I love this song. And then you got to go look for the video too. They were playing something, I think it was called the Greasy Trucker's Benefit. And in the video, there's people tripping on acid. There's a girl that's totally tripping with bubbles on stage. A lot of hippies, but the song is so great. Lemmy got fired from Hawkwind for taking drugs. Okay, no, it wasn't for taking drugs. It was taking the wrong drugs. You see, Lemmy took speed, and the band took psychedelics. A person tripping does not go well with a person tweaking. Lemmy started Motorhead in London in 1975. It was Lemmy that named the band Motorhead after the last song that he wrote for Hawkwind called Motorhead. And if you don't know, slang for somebody that uses speed or meth is calling that person a motorhead. And they had troubles right from the very beginning. Their first attempt at recording an album was rejected by United Artists, and they shelved the album, and later they released it as On Parole. That was in 1979. The band was pretty much dropped before they even really started. The critics, they didn't like them either. They said they were out of step with punk and metal trends of the mid-'70s. When Lemmy says we're Motorhead, we're rock and roll, that's what it always was to me. It's just true rock and roll. It's aggressive. It's fast-paced. It's definitely got punk and heavy metal. A lot of people think that Motorhead is one of the first bands to come up with the term speed metal or even thrash. The first real breakthrough for the band Motorhead came with the self-titled album 1977 called Motorhead. Then they put out Overkill and Bomber in 79, and of course the iconic Ace of Spades in 1980. In 95 is when the band became the power trio with Lemmy, Phil Campbell, and Mikkey Dee. In Motorhead's history, the band had sales of over 15 million albums. And when you look at Motorhead's history, that band toured pretty much all the time for 4 decades. They even had songs like Keep Us on the Road. I love the band Motorhead. You know that. I really do. The really old stuff and the music the band put out just up until 2015. Lemmy was the only person that was in Motorhead since day one. I'm having a barbecue at my house that was in the Hollywood Hills. I'm not going to name drop here, but it was quite the star-studded event. Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray was there at my house. Oh, so was Tom and Carrie from Slayer, Rob Halford, Mike Muir from Suicidal Tendencies, Robert Trujillo, who was in ST before joining Metallica, was there, and Biohazard, and Gilby Clarke, and Rob Zombie, and it was a barbecue. We were having a blast, and in walks Lemmy. Lemmy had the shortest Daisy Duke jean shorts on. I'm surprised his balls weren't hanging out. He had a denim jacket on. There was no shirt. His belly was just hanging out. He didn't give a fuck. And even with those short shorts, he was still the coolest cat at the barbecue. And everyone knew it. It was so much fun, that barbecue. Everybody was just carrying on, drinking, eating. So Mark McGrath comes over to me and he's like, dude, Lemmy just took this Indian tomahawk off your wall and he's smoking weed out of it. It was an old Indian tomahawk that I had hung up on the wall. And Lemmy was smoking weed or something out of it. I don't know what he was smoking. So there's been a few instances in my life when someone will tell me something and I just don't know how to react. So I just stand there, I take it in, and then I just carry on, turn the page. When you hear something like that, you just don't know how to react. So Mark McGrath tells me Lemmy, in his glorious Daisy Dukes, has taken an ancient Indian artifact off the wall and he's trying to get high with it. What do? I just check the burgers on the grill. Matter of fact, whenever I'm in that situation, that's what I'm going to answer. Women, rock stars, everybody at this party is drawn to Lemmy. Actually, anywhere he went, people were drawn to Lemmy. He's a really good guy. He's royalty, but the furthest thing from being pompous. This party that I had started getting crazy, and soon everyone was getting thrown in the pool, fully clothed or not. I remember Lem pulled me aside and he said, hey, make sure nobody throws me in the pool because I've got speed in my pocket. Throw Lemmy in the pool? Who in their right mind would throw Lemmy in the pool? Nobody. If you see any of these documentaries or read these biographies about Lemmy, you'll hear the word gentleman used to refer to him. And he was. But there was that one time Motorhead was in the studio in Germany to record a song for the movie SpongeBob SquarePants. It was a Motorhead song called You Better Run, but for the sake of the movie, Lemmy had to sing You Better Swim. The person that was the music supervisor for that film was a very respected person in the industry. She did Pulp Fiction, one of the best movie soundtracks ever, as well as Reservoir Dogs. She even did the Minecraft movie, and her name is Karen Rachtman. Yeah, Rachtman is in My Sister. So Motorhead is in the studio. Lemmy is waiting to be interviewed by a reporter in Germany. He's waiting. And by the way, the interview is to promote the SpongeBob SquarePants soundtrack. After waiting for a while, they realize that the reporter is not showing. Who the hell pulls a no-show on Lemmy? So Lemmy's not in a good mood, but they needed someone to talk to Lemmy about the song. So they tell my sister last minute, hey, will you do this interview with Lemmy to talk about the soundtrack? She didn't even have time to call me to ask me for help or for me to call Lemmy. And again, I said Lemmy is not in a good mood because he'd been waiting all day for an interview that never happened. So Karen talks to Lemmy, and her first question is, what are your thoughts on SpongeBob SquarePants? And Lemmy replies, I don't know who that is. And then my sister explains to Lemmy a little bit about this sponge that can talk, and Lemmy interrupts and he goes, I fucking hate SpongeBob SquarePants. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't know what happened after that, but I do know that I got a phone call from my mom asking me to call Lemmy, and I hate to say it, but I was kind of glad that I didn't have to make that call. If you were part of the Hollywood rock scene, as much as you knew Lemmy was the baddest man on the planet in rock and roll, you also knew he was very accessible. We would see Lemmy once in a while at the clubs, and of course, in the last 2 decades of his life, Lemmy was always at the Rainbow Bar and Grill on the Sunset Strip. Lemmy kept hanging out at the Rainbow even after the Rainbow wasn't that cool anymore. He was at the corner of the bar, many times sitting alone with his little video game and his Jack Daniels and Coke, which, by the way, is now referred to as a Lemmy. This drink became so synonymous with Lemmy that a major food and beverage magazine released a proper recipe to make a Lemmy. And here it is. 2 ounces of Jack Daniels whiskey, 10 ounces of Coca-Cola, a dash of bitters. Shake the ingredients along with some ice and strain the drink into a whiskey glass. Garnish it with a twist of lemon peel. That is how to make a Lemmy. I had always thought it was just a whole bunch of Jack Daniels and Coke. I am going to play the interview that I did a couple years ago with the great Mikkey Dee from Motorhead. But first, since I'm talking about Motorhead and the Cathouse and the final night in 1992, I want to tell you that I have a few of these really badass shirts that are licensed by Motorhead and Cathouse. It's the Motorhead Cathouse final night at the Cathouse. Lemmy's on it in all his glory. And the shirt is like vintage soft. It's got a distressed collar, total been there, done that look. And you can get that shirt only at cathousehollywood.com. Again, the Motorhead Cathouse shirt. You want to get this shirt, and you can get it only at cathousehollywood.com. At one point in the late 90s, early 2000s, I had already been off of Headbangers Ball. I was doing talk radio in Los Angeles, and I had a club that I opened for a very short time called Royal Flush. It was just, I just wanted to do something different. It was all about hot rods and roots rock and roll. Of course, I had the band Headcats play. Rockabilly, hot rods. Oh, who is the band Headcats? Well, the band was formed by Lemmy. It had Lemmy, drummer Slim Jim Phantom of the Stray Cats, and guitarist Danny B. Harvey. Away from the mic stand, Lemmy and I would have great conversations. He knew a real lot about a real lot of things. He was obsessed with World War II and would go on about certain topics that I would just nod, so I didn't seem like an idiot because I really didn't know that much about World War II. He also loved roots rock and roll, as do I. So when it came to some of the legacy artists of the 50s, I could chime in here or there, and we were both huge Little Richard fans. While Lemmy has played with almost a dozen musicians under the name Motorhead, Mikkey Dee was the last drummer in the band. Truth be told, there are few drummers that can come close to the hard-hitting, knock your teeth down your throat power of Mikkey Dee. I've known Mikkey for a very long time. We used to do these pickup hockey games, and by the way, I can't skate, but there were so many cool people playing hockey, I decided I'd play with them, and Mikkey Dee was one of them. Mikkey was in Motorhead from 1992 to 2015. Side note, he was also in King Diamond and played on Abigail. How great is this to have my good friend Mikkey Dee on with me for Motorhead Day? Do you remember when the last time we saw each other was?
That was when we did the first show. I did the first show with Scorpions at that festival. Yeah.
We had lunch in Charlotte. I took you to the show, and what I don't know if you want me to say, but I'm going to say anyway. You, who I truly, and I've said this before, you're one of my favorite drummers to watch because you hit so hard and so aggressive and so raw. But you were nervous about the first Scorpions show.
Of course, we rehearsed for 1.5 days. But I heard, I was tagging along with the guys for a couple of weeks without playing before that. So I had a chance to listen, but it's always tense when you got to go on stage and you haven't. I mean, the first time with Motorhead was in, where the hell was that? Sarasota, New York State.
But it seems to me Motorhead is so fast and so aggressive and so raw, and Scorpions would be, to me, and I am obviously not a drummer, but to me it seems like it would almost be a little bit easier, or is it more precise because they're very intricate?
No, it's actually a harder gig. show that we do, because our show is, everything has to be so precise, and you know, some of it is on a click track, and there's not space in between to, I could just call out for Lemmy or Phil, let's have a drink, I need to tune the snare, or you know, when I was out of breath, I could just, you know, hey Lem, let's have a drink. And he go, okay, and he walk behind, and took, you know, 30 seconds to a minute just to catch your breath. But here we got to go, you know.
You started playing in Motorhead, was it 1991?
Yeah, end of 91, yes.
How many shows do you think, and I know this is just like a very vague question, how many shows do you think you did with Motorhead in that time? Because you guys played a lot.
Close to 5,000.
5,000 shows. I would guess that every show was a little bit different.
Yes, every single one was different, you know, and not in a huge way, but of course, it was a different type of playing and setup for the show, you know. So yeah, it varied quite a bit in between.
What is it about Motorhead that you think made it such an iconic band that stood out for so long, but it's almost simplistic? It's almost Ramones. It's almost punk rock, yet it's still metal and it's still rock and roll. What do you think it is about Motorhead that has had such a wide appeal and been such a legendary band for so long?
Well, there's a few different elements about that, but if you go back to England, I mean, Motorhead was a band that kind of united hard rockers, not so much metal fans, because that didn't really exist at that time, but hard rock and punk. It was okay to go and watch Motorhead play in London if you were a punk rocker and if you were a rock dude or dudette, you know. So, and they all partied down at the show, and then when they left the show, they hated each other again, which to me is kind of unbelievable, actually, because we have a lot in common, especially what Motorhead united them. And then it's the realness of the music, definitely, you know, never selling out, never compromising. And that's what Lemmy was all about. You know, he was never compromising the music or the style or himself or whatever. So, you know, and that goes through, you know, after 40 years, if you haven't got it, you know, you shouldn't even be a Motorhead fan. You can go listen to Britney Spears or whatever, you know, but for us, I believe that's a few things that is for real, you know.
One of the things about Motorhead is that, you know, you mentioned how it really united, you know, metal or punk and all, and just people that just like rock and roll. But the fan base was so broad. And I can't even imagine the people that you might have seen backstage that you were surprised were backstage at a Motorhead show. Can you remember some people that stood out?
Well, you know, there's so many, Ricky, you know, that's it's
okay,
impossible to...
Can you remember anything that ever happened backstage, Mickey?
Never. Nothing. Well, actually, I can't. But it's funny how Phil and Lemmy and Versal at the time, you know, they were just impressed by me remembering dates and shows. You know what I mean? Oh, well, hey, listen, I've been here. We played here the 29th of September, 93, you know, and I go, how the hell do you remember that? I don't know how I remember that, but I remember dates and venues and places and actually what was going on at that time. So I don't know why that is. And that can be trouble sometimes, actually, you know.
With such a history of Motorhead and in the eras from 1991 until to the final show, were there instances that really stood out that like that's pure Lemmy?
Oh, that happened not every day, but every week you got reminded, you know, that Lemmy was Lemmy, you know, in definitely, yeah, it could be anything, but most of all, you know, that he was a very generous and very fair guy, and working together with him 25 years almost, and then knowing him for 34, yes, of course, there's been plenty of moments where you get reminded. But in the end, we were such a close family that you, as Mickey or a family member to this family, I didn't really walk around thinking about that. But sometimes you got hit. You go, well, for instance, he was you know yourself that he was so easy with words and he could come up with his one-offs all the time. But we were talking about a show in Argentina one time. We should fly down there, and of course, I was the number guy going, well, we have to cut down on the equipment because this was a one-off. I said, I'll get Sonar to supply me the drum kit. Phil can have his Marshalls or whatever he played at the time, and you bring your amps, and maybe we shouldn't just fly all the cabinets down because it was an important show for us to do for the future. Or maybe it was Brazil. Maybe it was before a Rock in Rio. So it gave something. And then Lemmy said, he was really upset about it. And he go, all about numbers and money and stuff. But in the end, he said, Mickey, what's the point going down there not sounding like Motorhead? We shouldn't go at all. And, me being all the time trying to figure it out and being the guy that sorted stuff out, I go, you know what, Lemmy, you are so fucking right. Why should we even go there and not sound like Motorhead? So, it just reminded me, he ain't going to sell out. He's not going to compromise. And thank you, Lemmy, for reminding me about that. Because sometimes, personally, I could drift off in the business part of it and thinking, we have to do this. I'm sure Lemmy knew that too, but he said, what's the point going there not sounding like Motorhead? If we can't sound like Motorhead, let's stay here in LA, and I go, well, you're right. End of discussion. So, stuff like that. He was so quick. And I appreciate that because I learned a lot from that and respected that. And I believe fans see that as well, that he was that way. There was never any talk about cheaping out or doing this just because of making some more money or getting a good side of someone, or he was just, if it worked and we could be Motorhead, yes, we'd be there, and we're going to give you a show you never seen before, because we don't just go 150%. Here we go 250%. So, and that you've seen so many shows, so that's how I can explain it in a simple way, I guess.
I've got more with Mikkey Dee, former Motorhead drummer, current Scorpions drummer, right after this.
Do you love coffee? I mean, really love coffee? Do you know what specialty coffee is? It's a coffee that scores above 80 points on a 100-point scale. Specialty coffee is grown at high altitudes with care and attention from local farmers. There is a specialty coffee with a name you already know. Introducing Cathouse Coffee. I'm Lea Vendetta, CEO of Cathouse Coffee. Riki and I are there every step of the way. We roast in small batches, so when you get a bag of Cathouse coffee, you know it's fresh, 100% Arabica, dark roast. Cathouse Coffee, your new favorite coffee. Order at cathousecoffee.com.
Do you remember that show, The Young Ones? It was in 1984. I think MTV aired it for a while. It was a comedy. It was hilarious. I remember when Tammy and I were roommates, we used to watch Young Ones all the time. And I remember Motorhead appearing on that show, and they played Ace of Spades. And I just thought, wow, this guy is so cool because it's like a punk rock band, but the singer's got long hair. Motorhead was the only band that the punks loved and the metal kids loved. I mean, can you think of any other bands that were like that? Lemmy also wrote some beautiful songs as well. And that song from Ozzy, Mama, I'm Coming Home. Lemmy wrote that. Lemmy wrote several songs for Ozzy. That song, Love Me Forever. Lemmy's done several covers that he really made his own. I mean, let me tell you, I love the Rolling Stones, but in Sympathy for the Devil, when Lemmy says, "Please allow me to introduce myself," he makes that song his own. The title track on Sacrifice has some totally insane, progressive, aggressive drums. It was a different type of Motorhead song. But damn, Sacrifice, it was Motorhead, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sacrifice is a great song. Wrote it 94, 95, I believe. And the funny part was when I wrote the riff kind of and the beat, Lemmy, Phil, and Versal stood at me in rehearsal and go, "What the hell are we going to play to that?" You know, it became one of Lemmy's favorite songs.
Okay.
Lemmy said, "We're not Rush, okay? It's Motorhead, Mickey." But we made a great song out of it. And in the beginning, it was, you know, the time sequence of it is a little different than what we usually been doing. So I think that's the charm of that song. It's a stone hard song, and it became a great song for us. So
You played with King Diamond for a while?
oh yes, yeah, I was the original in King Diamond, not Merciful Fate, but
Right.
King Diamond. Yes.
But you played on
Yeah,
Abigail, stuff like that.
Yeah. Fatal Portrait, Abigail, Them, Conspiracy. You know.
And then you went into Motorhead. How did the transition from going from King Diamond to Motorhead differ? I mean, I know the Lemmy and those are two iconic rock guys, but they're so different.
Yeah, but you forgot one major deal there. Don Dokken.
I know that you played with
That
Dr.
was in
Phil.
between.
Yes.
That
Well,
was-
believe me, if there's anybody in between Lemmy and King Diamond, I would say Don Dokken was there as being different. And you played in Halloween
Well, just a record, yes.
and the Scorpions. So yeah, I know what
Yes.
you did.
Yeah. No, you know, Lemmy asked me first time, I believe, 1986 or beginning of 87. And, you know, I was very honored, of course. But I was in full gear with King Diamond, and we did great. And we were a great bunch of guys, great friends, and had tremendous success in America. So I was not going to jump over because of money or fame. Motorhead was a much bigger band than us. But we did so good with Diamond. And to be honest, I didn't earn my stripes to join the band like Motorhead at that time. I felt that I'm miles away, and I'm glad that I actually did not join, because I would have been eaten up for breakfast at that point. You know, I needed to tour, I needed experience, and at that point, King Diamond, that's what I wanted to play. So I was very happy there, and we did great. So I just, with respect, said, "Let me, you know, we're touring with King," but we kept contact. And then second time he asked me was maybe 1 or 2 years later, I believe. And same thing there. We were rocking our ass up in America. And the third time I was just about to go out with Don, with the Dokken deal that we did. So, and we had a fantastic year touring with Don. And then the band kind of fell apart. And Don said to me, "Mickey, you know, I don't know if there's nothing going on here now, you know, so if you find something, maybe you should take it." And he barely hang up the phone telling me this, and let me call and go, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Oh, nothing. Can you come to Hollywood and record a couple of songs?" I go, "Yeah." So I jump in my Corvette, and I was in Hollywood within, you know, an hour. And that was it.
But that's pretty flattering that Lemmy would pursue you as a drummer for Motorhead for such a long time. I mean, that's a big pat on the back. I know you're a very humble person, Mickey, but that's still pretty impressive that Lemmy would like want you as a drummer, and even while you were playing other bands, still keep on wanting you as a drummer. Just say, "Okay, who's the next guy available?"
Well, you know, he wasn't nagging on me, but they had a few problems with Filthy, and we just stayed in contact. That's what we did. And of course, he didn't call me up, hey, do you want to join the band again? And we were just talking and said, so what are you doing? You know, could you think of maybe coming around playing with the band? Or and that's how it was. But it was never, no, I'm not coming, or we were just talking about it. But I heard that he was interested, and he liked me, you know, and the boys liked me, so, and I liked them a lot. So I guess we just stayed in contact, and one thing gave the other. In the end, it was the right time to actually join that band, and at that point, I think I earned my stripes, and I had more experience, and I could go out and deliver something and be a part of Motorhead. I couldn't have done that earlier, and I'm sure Lemmy knew that in a way as well. Well, let's get some more meat on those bones, you know. Let's get him rocked up or whatever, you know. So it was good that I was not in the band earlier than that.
What are some of your memories of the final Motorhead tour?
Yeah, that was a tough one. See, I was trying to make us postpone that, or not me, but we were struggling a little bit, and I said maybe we should just take a break. But the one that did not want a break was Lemmy. You know, he said absolutely not. We got to do this tour, and he wanted to be on stage all the time, and that's how he was. But we had some trouble, you know, with Lemmy starting to get a little sick, more sick than, and he was more tired and stuff, and that was a tough tour. But here's the thing: if I had to give 150% out there, and Phil, now afterwards, I can't even imagine. Lemmy must have given 500% to be able to get through these shows. I mean, we played the 11th of December as the last show in Berlin, and then he passed away the 28th, just a few weeks later, and the guy was rocking his ass off. So, you know, for me, it's impossible to even think back that you can actually do that. So can you imagine how much effort it took for him to stay on that stage? You know, I came up with all kinds of ideas, you know, well, because he had a back problem too. And he said the bass is so heavy, the back is on fire. But that must have been parts of his disease, you know, now afterwards. But he had a back problem. So he said he had to stand on one leg at a time, and it was like fire on his back. And I said, maybe you should take a bar stool and he go, no way, Mickey, are you crazy? I will never sit down at the show. And again, not compromising, not changing anything. So all the credit to Lem right there. He really died with his boots on, you know. And I think back about that tour a little bit sometimes, and it was just unbelievable that we could go through with it.
Yeah, and I went to one of the shows, and you could tell he looked a little frail. But when Motorhead was on stage, I was still at a Motorhead show. I wasn't saying like, no, I was there at a Motorhead show. It's funny when you talk to people about Motorhead and people that actually had come in contact with Lemmy, because he was, despite being Lemmy of Motorhead, he was a very approachable person. And one of the words that I hear used a lot by people that knew Lemmy was the word gentleman.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what he was. He was, and that's what's kind of funny, because people were so intimidated by him, and oh my God, you know, is Lemmy here too backstage? Yeah, he is. He's sitting right over there. And, oh no, I'm too freaked out. I can't even go. You know, and you go, what are you talking about? And you took someone and brought him into Lemmy, and they were stuck for hours in there. And then, you know, the whole facade just crumbled with what people put up, that he was such a hard and angry man. He wasn't.
No.
He was actually a very soft, nice guy, and very well spoken and very well educated man, that knew everything about everyone. So, and that was fantastic. Yeah.
I got to thank Mikkey Dee for taking some time out on May 8th to speak with us here on the Cathouse Hollywood podcast. And if you go see Scorpions play, you're going to notice they have a little bit of heavier backbeat, I think, because Mikkey Dee is the drummer of the Scorpions right now. And he owns a bar in Paris, France called Alabama. And I'm going to France in November, and I'm kind of excited to check out his bar, Alabama. A Swedish guy has a rock bar in France called Alabama. Sounds great. I told you that Motorhead ended up playing for me at the Cathouse and did a bunch of shows for me. And anytime he played, all he wanted was a bottle of booze and some smokes. Not only did Motorhead play the Cathouse in 1992 for the final night, I sort of tried to revive the Cathouse for a short time on the Sunset Strip. And it didn't go very well, but I did open with a bang because Motorhead played that as well. And for the Cathouse 20th anniversary, Lemmy got up on stage with Gilby Clarke, Tracy Guns, and they played a couple of covers. Lemmy would be on my birthday show of Headbangers Ball. He'd be on several episodes that we would shoot at the Rainbow. He even kissed me on the head on TV. It was Lemmy. He can do that. He was always really, really good to me. He was intimidating, but once you spoke with him, he made you feel at ease. He listened. Some people talk, and then when it's your turn to speak, they can't be bothered. Well, Lemmy listened. Every rock star respected Lemmy. He could wear white boots. I mean, who wears white boots but still pulls it off? Lemmy wasn't in shape, and he would wear a jacket many times without a shirt. But he pulled it off. He could do that. Let's not ignore the obvious. Lemmy had some moles on his face. He fucking pulled that off. Who the hell can look cool with moles, belly, and white boots? Only Lemmy could do that. Lemmy drank a lot. Lemmy did a lot of drugs. Did a lot of speed. Never denied it. He said Jimi Hendrix once told him places to find drugs. Lemmy was indestructible, or so we all thought. On September 23rd, 2015, Charlotte, North Carolina, I went to see Motorhead for the last time. They played only 12 songs. He was almost 70. When they played, they sounded like Motorhead. After the show, I saw Lemmy. He was standing with professional wrestler and friend Sir William Regal. Lemmy didn't look great. He suffered from diabetes and a heart arrhythmia. He had had surgery to implant a defibrillator. He joked, and he told me that he was only smoking 1 pack a day. That was his being healthy. And he had switched from vodka and orange juice instead of Jack Daniels for health reasons. Not long after, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, and 3 months after I saw him, Lemmy died. There were star-studded tributes. Dave Grohl, Rob Halford, Lars Ulrich, Slash, and Mikkey Dee spoke at Lemmy's funeral. 1 year after the funeral, I had the Cathouse 30th anniversary party. And on stage, we all paid tribute to Lemmy by playing some of our favorite Motorhead songs. Former Nashville Pussy bass player, Amazon, and a really close friend of Lemmy, Corey Parks, in addition to blowing fire and almost frying the first 4 rows, played the songs using Lemmy's bass. I did an acoustic song with Ace Von Johnson on guitar and Shooter Jennings. Shooter and I sang I Ain't No Nice Guy After All. Todd Singerman, Motorhead's manager, was in attendance, and he whispered in my ear, Lemmy would be proud. And I cried a little bit. One day, several years ago, I go to my mailbox, and there's an envelope that says Motorhead on it. While Lemmy was alive, I would get birthday cards or greetings every year and sometimes get some unique gifts. I'm sure that Todd Singerman, Motorhead's manager, had a little bit to do with it, but it made me feel really good. Now, after Lemmy had died, there was this envelope. Me and my wife went to the mail. She took it out. I opened it up, and there was a little clear plastic jewel case with a bullet in it. I gave the letter to Leah to read, and I took the bullet out, and on it the word Lemmy was engraved. Leah told me that when Lemmy died, according to this letter, that he had a list of people that these bullets were to be given out to, and these bullets had Lemmy's ashes in it. I cried. I know I've told you 2 times that I cried, and they both had to do with Lemmy's memories. I'm not a guy that cries almost ever. On December 12th, 2022, I stood at the altar, and I was married, and Lemmy was with me. That bullet was in my shirt pocket. Lemmy was at my wedding. Every time I went on stage with my spoken word show, One Foot in the Gutter, Lemmy was with me. In my life, if there is ever a very important event, Lemmy's ashes are going to be with me. And I know that I'm going to be buried with Lemmy's ashes. Or cremated with Lemmy's ashes? Oh, I didn't really take that into consideration. I better think about that. So I want to get to that historic audio from the final night of Cathouse when Motorhead played, and I will get to that, but I have to take a moment to talk about Riki's Ride 25. For those of you that don't know, I'm a biker, and I ride far every single year, and I raise a lot of money for charity. And this year, Riki's Ride 25 is going to do 13,000 miles. Leah's going to be on the back of my Harley-Davidson Pan America CVO for most of the ride. And we're going to go from Key West, Florida, Texas. I'm going to spend my birthday in Austin, Canada, 4th of July in Alaska, Sturgis, and back. It's going to be 13,000 miles. And you can follow the ride and donate by going to lostramblers.com. That's lostramblers.com. And the ride is sponsored by Rambler Sparkling Water, which is what I'm drinking right now. And I drink it all the time. And you really need to try Rambler Sparkling Water. It tastes really good, and it's got minerals. And I like the black cherry. And the original flavor is really good. And by the way, I know this sounds like a plug, and it kind of is, but I really do drink Rambler, and I want you to try it because they're good people, and they also sponsor Riki's Ride. I listen to Motorhead all the time. I always have. And my favorite Motorhead song changes all the time. It's my go-to rock band and my go-to punk rock band. No band has or ever will be what Motorhead is to me. And I still have a dozen or more Motorhead shirts. And speaking of, when I play the audio of Motorhead, I'm done with the show. So one more time, I want to remind you of this very limited edition Last Night at Cathouse Motorhead shirt. And you can only get it at cathousehollywood.com. Lemmy's on it, the big Motorhead logo's on it, and Cathouse logo's on it. And there's not a lot of them, and they're only at cathousehollywood.com. Okay, it's October 1992. I walk on stage to introduce Motorhead, the last band to play Cathouse, on the last night of the Cathouse. You can tell that I'm excited when you hear me introduce them, but you can also tell that I'm a little bummed because, this is the final night. So I'm taking you back to Cathouse. It's hot tonight. It is packed. But tonight, everyone is a little more, dare I say, rambunctious? Because it is the last night. The lights dim, and I take the stage.
Oh. Hey, Cathouse, first of all, I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for supporting us for 6 years. Some of you guys, a long time ago, we made a list of all the bands that we wanted to play here. And this was one of them also. So, Cathouse, straight from the show, Motorhead!
Evening, everybody. Are you ready? Here it comes.
If you want to hear the entire audio of that song, join my Patreon, won't you? Because I sure don't make anything from doing these podcasts. So if you join my Patreon, it supports these podcasts, supports Ricky's Ride, and you're going to get a lot of cool stuff. It's patreon.com/Riki Rachtman. Thanks for listening to this show. And if you like it, give us a good review by all means and subscribe so whenever there is a new episode, whenever it is, you'll hear about it first. And it's free. I'm Riki Rachtman. Remember to keep one foot in the gutter, one fist in the gold.